Good morning, class. How have you been? I hope all of you are doing well. I hope all of you must have watched the play The Birthday Party by Pinter. At least you must have watched a bit of it. The play, the adaptation of the play that I had shared and asked you to watch during the class actually features Pinter himself, and it has been created by BBC, and it features Pinter himself, and is probably one of the best adaptations available for the time being. I hope you watched some of it and got a slight feel of the play and what the play is about and what it tries to communicate and all. Now, I had mentioned how the plays post 1940s were actually not very realistic plays, but rather they demanded some kind of intellectual effort to be put in from the part of the uh, audience also. That is, the playwrights and the writers of those times were actually university educated people who had been exposed to many ideas about life, who actually reflected upon many ideas about contemporary social life and the problems that are happening in the society. And probably when Harold Pinter writes a play like The Birthday Party, there are certain ideas about the society that he believes is happening in the contemporary society that gets reflected in the play. Now, I'll give you a very quick summary of the play so that you get a gist of the contents of the play. The whole play is actually taking place in a small boarding house, which is PT's and Meg's. They're a couple. Both of them are above 60, and they're a couple, PT and Meg. So PT and Meg are running a boarding house kind of a setup, and Stanley Weber happens to be their only tenant, Stanley Weber. So in the morning itself, we see Meg working in the kitchen preparing things, and PT entering and him reading the newspaper and inquiring about Stanley, and her going to fetch Stanley and coming back a little bit awkwardly. Probably something has happened there with her and Stanley. A lot of the things are left to the imagination of the reader or the audience actually, because in most of the regular plays, realistic plays and traditional plays, what happens is we get certain glimpses into the nature of the character so that we can make judgments about how one is, what kind of a person one is, and based on those judgments we actually decide to take sides most of the time, that this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. There are certain binaries, goodness, badness, and most of the time the conflict is between goodness and badness. But here in a modern play, when in the society itself the question of values and the question of right and wrong becomes problematic, probably that's why in Pinter's play also this problem persists. So when Stanley comes for breakfast, and we see that he's a very what to say, very uh, geekish, and he is very introvert kind of a guy. And once PT leaves, Meg actually tries to flirt with Stanley, but Stanley retorts to her. And then there is a mention by there was a mention by PT that two men are coming as borderers this evening, and two gentlemen are coming as borderers this evening. And Meg is surprised, but eventually agrees that she will be clearing the rooms. But Stanley seems to be very upset about him. He was the only borderer for years, but when he hears that two people are coming along today, he gets very upset for some reason. And then we see him going upstairs, and a woman named Lulu coming in with a secret package, the contents of which we never understand what they are. And later on, Meg in their conversation, Meg and Lulu and Stanley do have a conversation, and Lulu says that Stanley is a retard. He's a slow guy and he should be getting a life and such things. And then Meg also mentions about it being Stanley's birthday, which actually he denies. And in the evening, two gentlemen arrive, Goldberg and McCann. Two gentlemen arrive, and these two gentlemen seem very mysterious, very cryptic, and they inquire about Stanley, his past. And actually, even Meg and PT don't know much about Stanley's past and what he is. Meg says that he has been a pianist earlier and he does not have a job now, and such discussions happen. And when Stanley comes out, he's very uncomfortable in the presence of these two men, and when no other people are there, these men are actually interrogating Stanley very rudely. They're actually cornering Stanley and even physically holding Stanley in a very invendy and making him very uncomfortable and asking so many questions about how he betrayed the organization and how he killed his wife and all. So again, what is the kind of judgment that we are to make? Are all these information true? Whom are we to trust? Is there an authoritative voice we are to trust and believe what is right and wrong? Again, such an authoritative voice is not there. We do not have any kind of narrative closure about whether what each character is saying is true or false. The thing is, there are inconsistencies in whatever each character says. That is Stanley's story about himself, Meg's story about Stanley, PT's understanding of Stanley's life, and sometimes PT and Meg try to somehow hide a bit about Stanley. So do they actually know who Stanley is, or are they pretending not to know? All these are questions that actually confound the reader and keep the play open-ended, open for any kind of possible interpretations. And eventually then the birthday party happens. Stanley's birthday is being celebrated and Meg gives him a drum, and which he actually seems to be playing and walking around. But eventually Meg suggests that they play blindfold, and during the whole process, Stanley's a glassed man. I mean, he wears spectacles. Stanley's glasses are broken and he's physically tormented, and he's seen to be strangling Meg. When he's blindfolded, he's seen to be strangling Meg, but the two men take him away. And when the lights go out, and after the lights are turned on, they see that Stanley is in a position where he seems to be trying to physically abuse Lulu. So all these things are quite confusing. But when the next morning Lulu is inquired about it, she says that Goldberg tried to abuse her, and McCann actually questions her moral integrity, and there is an argument there. And eventually then the Stanley is being brought down. He's clean shaven, but he looks all washed out, and somehow the men somehow are slightly empathetic towards Stanley now, but eventually they take him along, and PT is unable to resist them from him being taken along. So again, there are a lot of things which are left for the interpretation of the reader or the audience of the play. That is, it reflects that whom are we to trust, or which story in the play is to be relied upon? What makes a certain character? What are the qualities of a character? We never understand it truly, because according to each version, according to Goldberg and McCann's version, according to PT's version, according to Meg's version, and according to Lulu's version, according to Stanley himself, and according to their stage behavior. Now Stanley somehow eventually gives a kind of dual vibe. Is he a criminal sort of a guy who comes from that kind of a background, who has assaulted people earlier? Or is he actually a nice guy on whom these charges are being pinned down upon? So many such questions are there. So we never understand what actually is happening, or what actually is the right story, or what actually is the proper narrative thread of the play. Probably this kind of manyness of reality, or unreliability of narratives, these are all the kinds of literary aspects that Pinter is trying to incorporate into the story. And the story is in many ways absurd. The play is in many ways absurd. You must have heard about absurd theatre. That is, does not make that much sense. Most of the time, realistic theatre, traditional theatre makes sense to us because there is a storyline which we are able to understand. There is a beginning, middle, and end to it. But here, many things are left to our interpretation, and we ourselves do not understand what is right, what is wrong. We do not have proper character judgments. And even the things that people do not actually make sense. It seems absurd. So many such things make this play one of a kind. And this is now Harold Pinter is a playwright who has won the Nobel Prize, and this is also called as the comedy of menace. I want you to find out which critic actually called it the comedy of menace. Probably it will be one question which might come for your exams. Keep it noted. Which critic called Harold Pinter's Birthday Party, A Comedy of Menace. Now you have a basic idea about the whole play, the plot of the play, and how narrative voices in the play are not that reliable, and how we are left with many confusions about people, their histories, their past, and we ourselves become in conflict, and then there is constant threatening that when somebody is living a life and some external agency comes and threatens their existence, questions their past and identity. So the inertia that is there in Stanley, the kind of introvertness and the kind of lack of agency when two men come and decide the trajectory of his life, all these are questions that are related to the post 1950s, when people felt that they do not have any agency, active agency in their lives, but are actually controlled by many other external forces. So all these things, all these ideas combine together and make up a play, a wonderful play like Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. So when you watch the play or when you read the play, think of all these aspects, and we will have further discussions in the coming classes. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys are keeping safe. We will be meeting in the next class. Thank you.